Alright, I thought I'd show you my rabbit stew recipe. So, one of the things that I do is I take some beef broth, and you can either get canned beef broth, or I had some leftover beef broth from another recipe, and then also use some chicken broth. I'll use like 1 can of this and half of this, and I'll put it in the pressure cooker first. So I'll take 2 to 3 pound rabbits at a time that are already processed and separated into, legs, back and breast, and put them in a pressure cooker, and I'll run it about 15 minutes. Just kind of speed things up. This is one way, instead of having to cook things for hours and hours and hours, you can speed things up with a pressure cooker. So this thing is just now starting to rock. So let me get the kitchen timer going. And then I have to turn this down, probably drop it down to 5 for now, and I'll have to come back and adjust it. But anyways, this recipe is pretty simple. We're going to need a little bit of garlic, and then I call this semi-homemade the way I cook. I'm making a big batch because I'm using 4 rabbits here, so I'm hoping I can stretch this out to probably 8 quarts. Maybe more, so we'll see how far it goes. But I use sweet onions. This is, I believe it might be Valdelia's, but Texas sweet work fine. I got a couple bell peppers. I've got mushrooms. I've got white wine. I got some carrots and celery. Probably going to use about half of these carrots and one of these celery hearts, excuse me. And then we'll see how many potatoes I use, probably about half of these, but this will be kind of like the filler that goes in there. And then I like to throw some jalapenos in there from my garden. I try to use as many things as I can from my garden, and the garden's kind of petering out now, but I've still got jalapenos coming off. So anyways, that's where we got. Let me start cutting things up, and I'll show you how we get the base part going, but this is pretty simple. Okay, 15 minutes is up, so I just took it off the heat and turned off the burner, and I'm going to let it rest for a little bit so the pressure can come down, and then I'm going to pull that meat out and just set it aside for now in like a stainless steel bowl while I continue over here. So what I've got now is the onions are coarsely diced, as well as the bell peppers, and then the jalapenos I just cut into relatively thin rounds. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in a pot and start sauteing those to break them down just a little bit. And then over here I decided this is how many I'm going to do of the carrots and celery hearts. And I'm going to put them in later once we start constructing the stew itself. So initially, we're just going to go ahead and get these sauteing. Okay, here's the first 2 3-pound rabbits that I finished 15 minutes in the pressure cooker. So you can see this just kind of gives it a head start for the cooking process. And then over here, I've got this is actually the onions, bell peppers, and jalapenos are just starting their process. Now, what I do is I normally don't cook this much, so I'm kind of doubling my recipe up because I'm planning on making, this probably will end up close to 16 quarts once we're done. I'm just not sure with the amount of ingredients here how far it's going to go, but you got 4 3-pound rabbits, roughly 3-pound rabbits, so that's 12 pounds of meat. And you saw I had 4 pretty large onions, we got 2 large bell peppers, half a dozen jalapenos, and then we're going to have, 4 good-sized carrots, a couple celery hearts, and then a bunch of potatoes. And we're still got to add a bunch more broth and everything. In fact, everything from the pressure cooker is going to go into the soup base as well. So it's just releasing all of those flavors into the juice, and so this can be fantastic. Everything I do here is gluten-free. Sometimes you'll see recipes where they will actually kind of braise the rabbits first by drenching them in flour and stuff, but I can't do any of that because that would add gluten unless you used like corn flour or something, but I find this works just fine. So anyways, let me get back to changing out the rabbit that just finished here with other rabbit that needs to be pressure cooked. Okay, I went ahead and cut up 5 pounds of the red potatoes. That ended up about 5 quarts. So it looks like I've got, out of this 8-quart container, I've got about 4 quarts of vegetables. And just the first 6 pounds of not deboned, but boned rabbits, you can see that's probably about 4 quarts. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the legs intact and just put them in the way they are, but where the backs and breastbone, I'm going to strip the meat off on that, and that'll be kind of like shredded rabbit that'll go into the stew. And then we still got a couple quarts of beef and chicken broth that we got to put in. Now the second batch is coming up the temperature, so this actually works really well. You can, while you're pressure cooking, you can be preparing all your vegetables and everything and getting it ready. The whole purpose why I'm making such big batches, I end up canning, and this is an excellent way to preserve a whole bunch of vegetables as well as your meat, and I'll probably end up with about 14 quarts canned, and then we'll have a couple quarts that we'll be eating on here shortly as well. So we're going to have that for our probably late lunch today. But anyways, just give you an idea, this is, I think it's important when you cook to make some extra and have it stored, and it's just like fresh when you take it out. It's fantastic and it'll last for years. We store ours down in the basement, and I kind of recommend everybody kind of go back to what their ancestors used to do, and this is the way they used to cook big meals and store the rest. And it's good for a rainy day. I know we're coming into winter and I'm not going to have fresh vegetables, at least from my garden anymore, so this is a good way that I'll have it available for me. Now I wanted to show you, when we cook this in a pressure cooker, it does a really good job of breaking this down. Now these were young rabbits that I raised myself, so these were not old tough things, but the front legs are, you know, the meat just comes right off the bone, so we're going to go ahead and strip those as well. They won't hold together. But the back legs are more denser meat, and so those will go into the pot the way it is. So we're going to have 8 of those that'll be in there, left alone. The rest we're just going to go ahead and strip. So there's some tenderloins in here as well, and I'll just cut those up. But we're going to go ahead and strip the meat off of these now. The other ones, when they come out of the pressure cooker, are going to have to cool down. But I could probably go ahead and just take the bigger legs and stick them in the pot. I'm now going to take all of this that we have here and split that between 2 8-quart pots evenly. And I just usually use a ladle and measure it out. I'll get one more pot out here, measure it out between the 2, and I'll dump it back into this one. So I'll have half in this one and half in the other one, even Steven. Then I'll add my potatoes, add the juice from the pressure cooker, and I may even add a couple bags of Lipton onion soup, the dried soup, because that has excellent flavor too, and that kind of helps thicken things up. I did add the whole bottle of the white wine, which is 12.5 ounces, and that also gives great flavor for the rabbit. And once things start cooking, I'll add the stems and pieces that I have here, and also the garlic. Got a couple pieces of garlic, a couple tablespoons, that is. All right, so anyways, things are kind of coming together. Let me pause this. I did want to tell you at this point, you know, I used about a half a container. What is that? It's 48 ounces, so let's say 24 ounces of chicken broth, and then I used one of these cans of beef broth, which is 14 ounces. It's hard to see that here, but trust me, it's 14 ounces. And then I pressure cooked it in there. Now, one of the things that I've done, and just a quick meal, I'll pressure cook it, take it out, and then I'll serve it on a plate with this chili garlic sauce from the same company that does sriracha. And I'm telling you, this is amazing. I love just putting that right on top of these legs that I have here and eat it just like that. I use this sauce also for chicken legs. Works like a champ. So anyways, I don't get paid for any of this. Just trying to tell you the things that work for me. Okay, here I got my wife. She's separating the meat off the bones, and it comes off very easily. Again, after pressure cooking, it's basically kind of broken it down. And so this is all you do, just separate it off to the side. And you could save the bones and make some broth out of it, but other than that, that can be just pitched. But just break it into smaller pieces and that'll work perfect for the stew. So I got some bell pepper pieces, some carrots, some celery. This is stuff that you just don't throw in the trash. I take it down and I give like the bell peppers to the chickens, and I give the carrots and celery parts to the rabbits. Nothing goes to waste in this household. Alright, so now what we've got to do is we need to divide up that pot evenly, so then I can take the rest of the ingredients and divide it up between these two larger pots. So what I decided to do was I was going to, take a big ladle, and I was going to take a scoop, put it over there, take a scoop, put it in my 5-quart pan, and when I get all the way to the bottom, then I got to do is just dump this back into that pan, and I know I've divided it evenly. So that's what I'm going to end up doing here to divide this up. Alright, I've divided up the vegetables between the two pots, and I also have 4 of the hindquarters from the rabbits in each one of these, as you can see. I've also separated out the next meat that needs to be separated, and then I also have this juice that was from the pressure cooker. So I'm going to add this, split it up between the two pots here, and that should get us close to where we need to be. Let me go ahead and divide it up, and then we just got a few more ingredients. Okay, we now have the stock that was generated from the pressure cooker, and you can see that's brought it up to where it's basically covered the potatoes up. Now I've kind of got this on maybe a little bit higher than medium. The light's kind of reflecting here, so I've got it on 6. And we're going to put the covers on these and let this continue cooking while we get the meat stripped off and get the rest of it in here. Now at this point, we still need to add the mushrooms, and I've got some more beef broth to kind of even it up half and half between chicken broth and beef broth. And also, did I say mushrooms? I can't remember. So we got to dump the mushrooms in. But otherwise, this recipe is basically done except for letting the potatoes cook. Okay, this is the first 2 rabbits where the meat's been divided. And so this is the part that has the bones. You can see that's very well stripped. So there's a lot of meat here, and we still got 2 more rabbits to go. So this is going to go a long ways towards filling these pots up the rest of the way. So I'll probably take the meat from this one, just divide it between the 2. I'll just keep doing that because you never know, the other rabbits might have been slightly larger. Alright, so let's do that. Okay, the recipe's complete. So I did add 1 bag of Lipton onion soup, right here, per pot. I added 1 can of sliced mushrooms per pot, the smaller cans. I ended up with, I'll say 28 ounces of beef broth, and then 48 ounces of chicken broth. And everything is cooked now, and this is a very, very dense meat recipe. It's excellent. And the other thing is, remember when we stuck the larger legs in there, the bones just pull right out now. So this is boneless now, and every once in a while you might find something in there because this was a real meal. It's not something from a factory. And so I hope you enjoyed it. It didn't take that long to make. I probably got 2 hours into this, but there was a lot of watching Jason Bourne while we were doing this. Anyways, gluten-free, very rich meal. This would actually be very good over rice, so you can stretch this out. I'm probably going to yield, probably not quite as much as I would have liked, but could have thrown some more potatoes in to fill this up some more. But probably have about a case of quart-sized jars, so 12 containers, and then we'll also get a meal out of this today. It'll warm your belly. All right, thank you. Comment if you have any questions. I may have forgot something, or I can clarify, but this is a very simple meal. And try raising your own rabbits. This is a great way to get your own meat and know where it came from. And like that one commercial, healthy, healthy, healthy. Bye now. God bless.